out of that floor, Tom.
Killing the bill.
Thanks, Leo. Well, this does have the feel, as already been alluded to, of being in an alternative reality here in this room, discussing what, as far as I know as a journalist, most economists consider to be the critical problems of the American economy, while on Capitol Hill. They're discussing how to further hurt the jobs picture, and there is no real vibrant discussion, as far as I can tell, of these issues. And I guess all that you can do, either the New America Foundation, some of these gentlemen here, is to try to inject this into the conversation. We have now had, a generation, I would say, or more, generation and a half perhaps, since the Reagan years, of a set of policies that has pretended, in effect, to support the American middle class, the working class, indeed to rely on it and to allow the rest of the world to rely on it as a kind of consumer of last resort for the world economy, including China, while at the same time a whole series of policies were, in sort of termite fashion, without being seen, undermining the middle class in so many ways. And of course, the real lesson of the giant crisis of 2008 and its aftermath was that it was all an illusion. The American middle class was sustained by enormous amounts of debt that was promoted and encouraged in many ways by government policies as well as by Wall Street. What we're seeing now in this long aftermath, 2 years after the recession supposedly ended, but it still feels like one, is basically an inversion of that giant credit bubble that was going on in the 2000s. And we're in the middle of what some economists are saying is perhaps the worst recovery ever on record. Leo alluded to this earlier, but an even scarier figure in some way than the unemployment rate, which is 9.2%, although the actual unemployment rate is much higher, is the numbers of Americans who have entered the ranks of the long-term unemployed or the permanent unemployed. If you look at Bureau of Labor Statistics data, it's really scary. I mean, going back to 1948, even in some of the worst recessionary periods, the 1980s, the stagflation 70s, 92, you don't see anything like the figures we're seeing now. Something like 43% of the unemployed in 2010 were unemployed for more than 27 weeks, and many of them are for more than a year now. And we don't have policies in place to try to bring them back, to give them the training, to give them the skills, to give them the work. So this jobs report, this task force report on job creation could not come at a more important time. As it notes, that probably has not been since the Great Depression that so many Americans have been unemployed for so long in a supposed recovery period, and for more than 20 months, I think it says. So with that, let's begin the discussion not only of the specific proposals that are laid out here, but of their political viability, because I think that's very much a question at hand here, because of what's going on, because of the kind of the debate and discussion going on in Capitol Hill, seemingly divorced from the reality of the economic crisis we're facing. What can the President do? What can the Congress do in terms of these kinds of proposals? So you've already had partial introductions of Leo and Senator Harkin, as well as the Congressman. Cheryl Schweninger, another key author of this report, is the director of the New America Foundation's Economic Growth and American City Programs. He's also one of the founders of the group, and he was a founding editor of the World Policy Journal from 1983 to 92. Patrick Malloy has served four two-year terms on the U.S.-China Economic and Security Commission. He's a former Foreign Service officer, and he has observed the evolution of the U.S.-China relationship from close up, and we'll want to hear from him a lot about the China trade issue. So with that, why don't we start up the discussion, and I think I'd first like to start off by saying, what do you think? Perhaps we can start with Senator Harkin and Congressman Garamendi. Of these kinds of proposals being laid out in this report are politically feasible at this point?
I'd rather turn to the experts.
Okay. Well,
not that I want to.
I'll just throw that out there. What do you think is politically feasible at this point in this kind of environment?
Politically feasible?
Okay. Next question.
Look, I kind of alluded to it in my opening statement. Political feasibility depends upon political leadership. Political leadership comes about from individuals who I think have a deep feeling for and an intellectual concept of what is happening to our society writ large. If a political leader says to you that our unemployment is 9% and doesn't mention the 18%, they don't have a firm grasp of what's happening in our society. If a political leader says, gee, we just have more of these so-called free trade agreements because it will help our country and help employment, then they don't have a firm grasp of what's happened in the past with these free trade agreements. So what's politically feasible depends upon political leadership. And I'm not in the mode of bashing President Obama or anything like that, but I think the times call for bold, innovative leadership on the part of the President of the United States. If we don't have that, then it sort of comes back down on our side in the Congress, and we take our cues from our constituents in many ways, and then we lack that kind of cohesiveness that we need for political leadership. I think we need a strict examination. This is getting a little bit off, but we need a really good examination of how we went in the short span of a little over 2 years from a president elected with a huge mandate, with a progressive mandate, and a Congress that was run by good progressives in the House and in the Senate, where we had 60 at one point, 59, 58 votes now, to a Congress yanked around by the Tea Party on the House side, and where we have 53 votes on the Democratic side in the Senate, and out of that you got 4 or 5 that sort of gotten wobbly in the knees on a lot of issues. How did that happen in 2.5 years? I think we need to look at that and examine that and find out why we have gone this far in the other direction in just 2.5 years. I believe, and I will shut up on this, I believe it's because we haven't paid attention to the underlying real problems in America, which, as Leo and his task force have pointed out, is the jobs issue, and especially among young people. Read the part in this report where it talks about, when young people can't find a job, they've been educated, they can't find a job, that kind of hangs around them, not just for a couple of years, but the rest of their lives. And that's one of the most debilitating things that's happening in our society today, is the lack of jobs for young people. Well, I get off my thing.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I think it's important to understand that politics is not static, and that the economic realities will reshape the politics in the next 6 months. Those economic realities are pushing us closer and